Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Crown Report. My name is Brittany, and on this program, we go over all sort of the major royal news stories of the week. Number one, of course, we had the continuing case that is getting ever more serious for Marius Borg Høiby, who is the son of the Crown Princess of Norway. He was arrested last week. He has been held in jail now for several days. He should be let out sometime this week, but the case around him gets ever more complex and more implications of his criminality, the people he associated with it being criminals, so many different things that really puts the Norwegian monarchy in a continual bad light. So we will go over the latest, including a video of him apparently reenacting the violence he committed against his alleged girlfriend, some more details of cases, how he would record women, and all these sorts of things that are just absolutely horrific and is just such a warning to every royal family. We also have the recent release of some new pictures or portraits done by Annie Leibovitz of King Felipe and Queen Letizia of Spain. And I would say they're a little controversial because they're a little odd in some ways. And so we will look into that and share how much they cost and why these were done, because it is a rather interesting case. And of course, very excitingly, we have Catherine, the Princess of Wales, making a return and participating in some of the events surrounding the upcoming state visit with Qatar. And so that is obviously so very exciting. We have some exciting news out of Denmark, a little bit out of Monaco, obviously the reopening of the Notre Dame de Paris. And will we have actually royals in attendance? I didn't think of that really being a possibility, but apparently it's being reported that some of the foreign royals, especially those who have connections to the Catholic Church, will be participating in the event. So still very, very exciting. So welcome you all here from all over the world. But let's start off, of course, with the just such like, I mean, it's almost becoming increasingly sad at this point, the case of Marius. Oh, Marius. So this is sort of a long piece in CO Korg, which is kind of a sort of more of a gossip outlet, you could say, but they will print things that sometimes the major Norwegian press, like, and I believe it's NRK, won't print because of their connection to the royal family. So CO Korg has so much about this case, and Marius himself is just, it's so obvious that he is just a guy who has been a part of some criminal elements, and that's just very, very sad. And it's like he's well aware of that. He makes no apologies for that. And apparently in some Snapchats, they're like chatting about his own criminal case. So it's just really absolutely insane here what is going on. And so let's go ahead and get into this, because obviously we did announce he was arrested last week again. So if you are not aware, let's do a quick overview of the Marius case. So he was arrested initially in August for assault. The royal family was contacted before the arrest was made, and it was sort of arranged with, members of the royal household and him for him to be arrested in regards to that case. And so as the police were investigating, he was given a restraining order, which he violated in September, and was arrested again. And then as time has gone on, he was arrested for a third time, and this time for SA. So he has been accused of assaulting women in a very intimate manner. And in some cases, there wasn't penetration, I guess. But what was revealed last week, which is most interesting, and we get to it in another story here as well, is that he filmed the women. And one of the women did not even know she was assaulted until the police contacted her, because they happened to find a video on his phone. And what is even more revealing is that the police no longer really trust the royal family in regards to Marius, because initially they went and actually let the royal family know that they were going to arrest him initially. But the third time, they kept them completely in the dark, because they were increasingly concerned that I think particularly Crown Princess Mette-Marit, his mother, would interfere somehow, or there's sort of I don't want to say an allegation, but sort of an inference as she might have helped conceal some evidence, particularly hit the SIM card from his phone for his initial arrest. So they went ahead and didn't tell the royals at all. And I think shows, again, a breakdown of the trust that even the police have in the royals when in regards to Marius. They don't really trust him in regards to him. So let's go ahead and get through some of this here. And so there is obviously there's like 3 cases that they're currently investigating. And as CEO Gehorg here says, and obviously this is a translation from Google Translate, the Marius scandal is escalating with each passing day, as being talked about by the general population, including Oslo's underworld, because he is very much connected with the underworld in Oslo. This and he's even been brought into the police station so they could talk to him about his criminal connections. And he basically said, well, my family knows who my friends are. Okie dokie. So I obviously don't really know much of what this says, but it says some of the exchange of words take place among the capital's most inveterate criminals. The conversations are conducted in a secret network of which Marius is part, meaning that he is essentially a criminal. I don't think you could read that any other way. You don't really cavort with criminals unless you're probably a criminal yourself, to be quite honest. And the abuses have apparently been joked about and ridiculed, and he has as well. So that is what sort of some of this says, and says, and this is one of the comments, but I think this is part of a translation issue. So you'll have to excuse me because I don't know quite maybe what, I don't think it was supposed to be the word porn, but it says the only thing I thought was porn is that he got XX, name redacted, into the car and drove without a ticket the night of the day he was supposed to go to detox. So this is one of his criminal network friends here. And so it's one of those things where, they're kind of making fun of him. They're kind of making fun of the situation. And this is very serious. And one of the things that has recently emerged is that he sort of did a reenactment on one of these internal networks that he has within the criminal underworld, which are completely willing to sell him out, by the way, reenacting sort of what he did to his girlfriend. So we'll try to press play here. We may need to go through some ads. So hold on just a second. So we have an ad right here. I always think it's funny that they're in Norwegian, to be quite honest. I think that's kind of awesome. So, and obvious because this is a Norwegian website. So it's just like the severity of what is going on here, and the fact that he continues to just sort of flaunt the rules. He just doesn't seem to be taking any of this very seriously. And I want to go over something because I forgot to mention it as well, is that one of the assaults that apparently is accused of having against one of the women happened after his arrest in, I believe it was September, or between his first arrest and his second arrest. And so he has just not taking this seriously. He's arrested for assault and then he assaults somebody else. Like it's crazy. So let's go ahead and get back here. Oops. All right. Okay, so we'll start.
Se og Hør har fått tilgang til materiale.
So that is Marius apparently reenacting what he did against
Spørsmålet om hvordan han gjorde slutt
There's a
med
bit
den
of a
forrige kjæresten
conversation,
sin.
I guess, here,
Da
which I
svarer Høiby
don't
på denne
totally
måten.
grasp, obviously. Obviously, incredibly serious what is going on here. And he makes light of it. And so this is not something that seems to be sort of drilling down into his head whatsoever. And another in the thread says, but that's probably why they struck, since he was going to travel. So they are worried about him. Apparently he was going to go to rehab in London. That is why the family made sort of an emergency trip to London that they didn't really share anything about. But because he was going to be traveling out of the country and they had this information about these assaults, they went ahead and arrested him. And so apparently somebody joked that he wanted, the woman he assaulted wanted her knife back. So it's just crazy what's going on. And Marius apparently responded, "Take care. I'm not a wife abuser, never married after all," which doesn't really mean you can't abuse women if you're not married. So this is him apparently in London. And so there is a third assault that he is being investigated for right now. And it's something that people were well aware of in his sort of friend group. It says, I said 2 to 3 months ago, we were talking about 4 to 5 sleep situations that will come. Now it's up to at least 2. So like they all know even the criminals know he's a bad guy. Like even the criminals know he is like, right. As Carol said, he is only 27 years old. So, I mean, he's still young, but at the same time, he is an adult, obviously. And so police detectives have talked to him about his criminal past. And then these are some of the women and even a man he is accused of actually threatening. So there's obviously been a lot of talk about this, and that he apparently had 2 mobile phones in use in a secret network, and these allegedly hide materials that certain members do not want to expose. So the conversation here is that because he had 2 phones, that one of them was more for his criminal activities and the other one was more for his personal use, is sort of the allegation that's going on. And he knew a lot of drug dealers, and his father was in prison for drug dealing as well. So there's some family history there. But you would think if you experience something that you would try to help your child avoid the same things. And so it says has 2 mobile phones now. He was probably arrested with both of them. They're probably very interested in finding out what's on the other. And this could be very detrimental to him as well, because if there are like pieces of information there that are very criminal, and he is exposing criminal people because of his own terrible practices, then in his criminal activity and his violence against women, then he might be at risk from his criminal friends. So all of it is just absolutely insane. So it says here another person expressed fear. If he doesn't open it himself, he'll probably sit there for a while. If he is that stupid, that he hasn't deleted anything on his phone. So basically, he's stupid for not deleting the criminal stuff on his phone. If he has something sensitive there, so cleaned up by deleting iCloud, then he can just sit inside, nothing in the community to do. Yes, hope there is nothing there, because I think it is in this article as well. They talk about him potentially being involved in drug trafficking. So very obviously crazy things going on here. It's just crazy that a person who is this connected to the royal family has such obviously very disturbing things that he is a part of here. So obviously this was done with Snapchat. He was arrested actually for the 3rd time near his parents' home. And so they've had things that were stolen from them because of parties he held and everything. So I'm just trying to see if there's anything else here. So like they're literally talking about him and he's talking about himself in these chats, which I think is a little bit insane. So it says here, another writes, Marius is an abuser of women and other cases are flowing now. So they, again, all knew that he was trouble as well. So Marius deserves what he get if he is convicted. And so they are not super happy about him as well. And then they did try to get him to rehab, but apparently he has been to rehab several times now. Nothing has seemed to work. And they were going to send him to London, but they didn't want him. And so it is also believed as well is that the woman he assaulted might have been assaulted in his home in Sakuam. And that is important because that is technically his parents' property, which is patrolled by state-funded, you could say, police officers. So if he assaulted a woman under the protection of a property that is protected by the royal family, like that becomes another grave issue that Hakan Metmaret must be dealing with, or Metamaret. So these are the most serious charges. One has apparently happened on the morning of Palm Sunday, and they know this because he recorded his assaults. So they know what time because he recorded them. And so it took place at the woman's own home in central Oslo. And so they expanded it to another charge. And apparently he is looking at potentially about 10 years or more in prison. Now, prisons in Norway, I've heard, are very nice. But I think this week, because he has been in prison and unable to contact his family, I wonder if that will be a bit more of a wake-up call for him, because I think this is probably the first time he's been somewhat held to account for his actions. So he denies, obviously, though, all charges. So there are now overall 6 victims in this growing number of cases, and they jailed him in part so that they could stop him potentially interfering in the investigation they're trying to run on him. So, and they obviously wanted to prevent him from going out of the country as well. So he was transported to the Central Detention Center in Oslo, and the family wasn't known. And so it was just crazy things going on. I think Hakan and Metmart are probably pretty devastated and very embarrassed in many ways, and they sort of should be. They sort of should be. And I think the growing call is how are they going to respond? Because they haven't really responded very well. They've just sort of said, obviously we want to let the criminal investigation run its course and everything like that. But given how much they've been involved in some ways, I feel like there really needs to be a level where the family kind of finally acknowledges this is his mom here, Metamurat, acknowledges what is going on and answer it. So Vagel, so this is, I believe, Caroline Vagel. Sorry, an ad popped up there and moved the page, points out, and she said the pressure on Mom Metamurat and Bodestad Hakan to comment on the matter has been constant. But both have so far chosen to say as little as possible. Now I think it is time that they become clear in their communications with the outside world, not because they are mom and dad, but because they are a future king and queen. Yes, oh yes, I think that is 100% correct. I think overall, Hakan and Metamurat do owe the public some sort of explanation. Now, yes, obviously the convictions and everything going on with that need to move forward. They don't need to interfere or anything like that, but these things were happening on their property. They knew things were being stolen from their property because of wild parties that he was holding on their property. They also apparently, Metamurat met Hell's Angels at her own house because her son had invited them there. So they obviously knew that he was involved in some sort of nefarious elements. And yes, they cannot, as he is an adult, make all the decisions for him, but they could make decisions like, you can't come to our house. You can't come to our property. We'll meet you somewhere else. We'll go to your house, but you can't stay here. Now, I think their solution to some of the problems I think they knew he was having, because girlfriends had told them about various issues, is that they were thinking, well, if he stays on our property, we will be able to sort of police him better. I don't think that was necessarily actually the greatest idea in the world. And I don't think they were really policing him all that much based on sort of the information that we have. So he was allowed to sort of run wild. And now they're sort of paying the price for that. And I do think that's very sad in a lot of ways. But at the same time, sometimes you sort of reap what you sow. And I think that's the particular case in this situation, very sadly. Very sadly. Hopefully, the Norwegian monarchy can pick itself up and sort of move away from this. This is sort of why they have Princess Ingrid Alexander continuing her military training an additional 3 months or so, is to keep her out of this whole thing. He has another younger half brother, Magnus, as well. So they are trying to keep him out of that as well. He is actually living, I believe, up north with his girlfriend. And so they're trying to keep the kids away from this mess, but they let Marius be around their kids as well. And obviously he is their half brother, so they do love him and everything, but you got to wonder how much the parents were policing in this particular situation. How much were they actually watching these interactions? Did Marius introduce his sister, the future queen of Norway, to criminals? It's a lot of questions, and these are questions that must be answered. That's why I've always been on the fence of, yes, obviously the criminal investigation needs to run its course, but the crown princely couple do owe, I think, the country some sort of explanation for some things, because I don't think silence is totally working either. Yes, you need to have it highly controlled what you say. Totally get that. That's from a PR perspective, that makes sense. But I don't think silence is helping them either, if that makes sense. I just don't think it's helping him very much. And so this whole case is obviously continuing to evolve. We will continue to keep an eye on it, because you just think it's going to be one thing, and then it's like every single week there's something else. There's something else to this case. So we will keep following it. If more charges are revealed, we'll cover it. But yes, the Marius case continues to move forward. So let's move on to something you could say a little bit more exciting and different. And that is, of course, in the new portraits of King Felipe and Queen Letizia of Spain that were done by Annie Leibowitz, the famed photographer. She's also taken pictures of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. So these are kind of interesting ones. So we have them here. So I would not say I'm a great photographer by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm somewhat a budding photographer. So I don't totally get the pictures, to be honest. I think you can't maybe totally tell here, but Felipe is very much in shadow. There's a little bit more light here for Letizia. feel like the background is very busy, and although they look great, I feel like it's a bit different as well. These aren't great resolutions because there is a video, so let's try to watch a little bit of the video here because they did make sort of an official presentation of them. The king and queen, though, were not there for the
El proceso de trabajo de Inile y
and Queen Letizia. So there are the portraits behind there. Get a little bit close up of the king's face, and you have the both of them there as well. You got the details of the room behind them. Oh, you can see that's kind of cool, like the mirror that kind of goes on and on for infinity. Those are always kind of cool. So apparently Letizia did start off with a tiara, but at some point Ms. Leibowitz asked that it be removed. She asked the same of Queen Elizabeth II as well. So, and these pictures cost 137,000 euros and were originally taken in, I actually believe it was February, but they'll be on display until March 29th as part of an exhibition called The Tyranny of Kronos. And so this is part of the Bank of Spain. So they asked that these pictures and commissioned that these pictures be taken, which I thought was sort of interesting. I don't remember that particular situation with Queen Elizabeth. And so Annie Leibovitz was sort of the famed photographer. I don't feel like they're very royal in some ways. So I don't know if I totally like them or not. So the press were given sort of the first view of them, and they were embargoed until today. And so they have been married for 20 years, reigned for 10. So the artist had absolute freedom from the choice of setting to the attire. So basically, you could say the whole thing was the result of Leibowitz. And so let's see. Here's sort of a high definition view of the image. And so Letizia, very interestingly, she actually is wearing a full-on vintage Balenciaga piece. The dress is vintage Balenciaga, and so is the cape here. I want to see if they have a little bit more. Can't remember quite the room they were in off the top of my head. I'm hoping maybe it shares it there, but it doesn't look like it does. So the session lasted 5 hours from 11 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon. So there were 5 people. The photographer wanted the king and queen to be dressed in gala attire, but no tiara. Gala attire, in my personal opinion, should always include a tiara. But that is because I love tiaras and they deserve to be seen so much more than they are anymore. So they posed in, Felipe posed in his gala uniform. And so the table, the chandelier, the clock, the mirror, and open door with the curtains. And so she was stripped of her typical elements of state, like kind of adornment. So she didn't have a tiara or a sash, which is sort of interesting because he is all in his regalia and she is not. So she did test with the fleur de lis tiara. It is one of Letizia's favorites, but it is I feel like overwhelms her frame, so I'm not like disappointed necessarily she didn't wear that one because I always just feel like that one, it has a very tall profile, very big, sort of overwhelms her frame in many ways. And then she wore the necklace and matching earrings made by Soria, and it was a gift from Alfonso the 13th to Queen Victoria Eugenia. So they are sort of a famous pieces of jewelry. And Letizia wears them quite frequently. I would say, especially the earrings are one of her more substantial pieces. And so they're in a room built during the reign of Charles III. So they decided on the Salon de Gasparni. So probably pronounced that wrong, but let's see. And here is a close-up of King Felipe. So I do like the mirror going in the background, but I feel like the background is very busy. So, and he is too shadowed in my opinion. So guys, let me know what you think of these portraits. They're nice. Could they be better? Probably. So yeah, I have definitely mixed feelings on them for sure. But Definitely good to see some royals getting some wonderful attention, you could say. And so it's sort of an interesting, I wonder, with all the chaos around obviously the recent floodings in Valencia. Now, they couldn't anticipate those because you can't anticipate weather phenomenon. But a couple of weeks afterwards, is it best to unveil these portraits? I don't know. That is something that would depend. Although I will say we did a whole piece on this for the Crown Report, that King Felipe and Queen Letizia actually going out into the crowds and facing sort of the angry mob that was there with compassion and everything, I think really did them very much cemented their relationship with the people in a lot of ways that weren't before. So I think that's a pretty amazing. So glad to see them getting some recognition, some gorgeous pictures. And so, I mean, I don't have any plans to go to Spain, but if I could go to Spain and see those, that would be pretty nice. And we have very, very exciting news for Catherine, the Princess of Wales, because she will take part in the state visit with Qatar. So unfortunately, we will not get a tiara appearance. This is from the South Korean state visit in 2023. So in November 2023. And she debuted the Strathmore Rose, which I'm still so bummed we did not get a decent picture of. Still irks me to this day that the Brits don't allow more photographers in to get some better quality images and videos for their state visits. I think that's like one of my really key criticisms of the British monarchy, to be quite honest, because I like the way other royal families do it, because you see so much more. But Catherine will participate with the sort of some of the opening events. So she will go with Prince William to pick up the Emir of Qatar at his place of where he's staying for this particular event. They will go and they will do the welcome ceremony with the guards, and then they will take carriages back to the palace. So very exciting. Sort of something kind of interesting about the Emir of Qatar is that there's the Emir Emeritus of Qatar, the Emeritus Emir of Qatar. I'm not sure which way it goes. And so his father is actually still alive. So this is Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. So I said that wrong, but it is what it is. So his father is actually still alive, and he is actually the son of his father's second wife. So his father's second wife, Sheikh Samoza, is sort of very infamous in royal watching communities because she has this fabulous sense of style. She always wears sort of a head turban. I apologize if I'm not using the right terminology, but she sort of wears this head turban. She's very dramatic. She always is dressed in designer duds, but she never lets her hair down. So she's sort of an interesting figure. And really, she must be the favorite wife of the Emir because she gets to go to all the foreign royal engagements. Her son is now the Emir of Qatar. Her children tend to be in higher up positions within the Qatari state. So I find that situation quite interesting because he has, I want to say, probably over 10 children, because she had, I think, 4 or 5, maybe even 6. She actually had quite a few children with him. And so I think he may even be their second son. So interesting situation there for sure. Interesting dynamics, I feel like, in the Middle Eastern monarchies, because very much the line of succession doesn't just go through the firstborn or whatever. This is a situation where it's actually, there's somewhat a favoritism aspect involved. So the Middle Eastern families generally are a bit different in this scenario. I would say specifically like Abu Dhabi, Qatar are very much like this. Jordan is not. Jordan is, you have one wife, you have one family. So that is a bit different there. But we do have this to look forward to. I do not know. I don't anticipate her wearing a tiara for this event. I don't think they necessarily have a bunch of those in Qatar. Will she wear some nice jewelry? Probably, because they're rolling in money. But when it comes to her actually wearing a tiara, I don't anticipate that. But she definitely could. But Catherine will participate in some of those opening ceremonies. And I do plan to be there on the Royal Mile, hopefully catching some of the carriage procession. So guys, for that particular event, I'm hoping for that evening for the Crown Report, because I will be doing it at 8 p.m., hopefully from the UK. I will be able to show you some of the coverage I got from the official event. Hopefully it's not too bad, but it's very exciting to see Catherine come out and do something. Obviously, it would be nice if she was attending the state banquet. Sadly, she is not, but she is attending part of the first day, most likely up until lunch. And I think that's perfectly fine. She is having obviously her Carol's a Christmas event later in the week as well. So she will be doing that. And so it'll be just a great opportunity to see Catherine a couple of times next week and hopefully more events in the next year. And it has been revealed as well that Catherine has invited some of the victims of the Southport stabbing incidents. I think all the children, their parents, and even the parents of those children who died to the Carols at Christmas event. So she will be there hosting them, and we will probably see many members of the royal family attend, including myself. Obviously, I'm not officially invited. Excuse me. But we will see many members of the royal family as we have before attending this event, including members of the Middleton family. So very exciting, and the royal kids as well. And maybe some more of the royal children. I love that the Christmas carols events, we see not only the members of the royal family, the senior members, but we see a lot of the kids as well, which I think is just a really cool opportunity and very much like Christmas. I love that it's like Christmas when we see them go to Sandringham and everything. It's very exciting. So we have that to look forward to next week, guys. So get very, very excited for this upcoming state visit. I know I am. And actually on the exact same days, I kid you not, December is turning out to be sort of a crazy month in royal watching because we also have the state visit between Belgium and Oman happening on the 3rd and 4th of December as well. Now, I thought a little bit about saying maybe if I could do part of the Belgian state visit, but that might have been too complicated. So we'll leave it at that. I'm requesting what I can get maybe for the Dutch state visit, which will occur on December 10th and 11th of December, which are the same days as the Swedish Nobels. So they have the initial Nobel Prize ceremony, which is on December 10th, and then they have sort of a follow-up dinner on December 11th. So we will have lots of tiaras within the next couple of weeks. So get very, very excited. Very, very excited. And I did have a whole video on my fashion channel, Royal Fashion News, talking about how we're seeing somewhat of maybe a tiara change, a change in the tiara rules around the British royal family. So very much something that is super exciting because I'm so excited about the prospect of maybe the Brits sharing more of the tiaras. Because what we see the Dutch and the Swedes do is share. The Brits didn't really do that under Queen Elizabeth. So I'm hoping that's going to change. I'm hoping that's going to change. All right, guys. So we will move on to our next piece, which I thought was really interesting because I wasn't totally thinking about this, to be quite honest. And this is from Pont de Vue, and this is a French website. And as I was going through, I was thinking about this because sometimes, obviously, I focus some more on the foreign royals, not always all so much about the Brits. And the reason is that it's hard to get like all the information on the foreign royals. I don't. You get sort of bits and pieces of them throughout the week. So I love it on this program. We can really share a lot because you can get a lot on the British during the week, but some of these foreign royals, not quite so much. And so we have a really exciting announcement with the possibility for the reopening of the Notre Dame de Paris. So when it comes to the reopening of this famous cathedral, which will happen on December 7th and 8th, it has been sort of speculated, this is not official, that Charles Abdullah II of Jordan and the King of Morocco, who I'm blanking on his name right now, actually might be attending this reopening ceremony. Now, Pope Francis will not, but foreign royals might attend. It's also maybe been speculated that King Felipe of Spain, the King of Belgium, the Grand Duke of Luxembourg, so sort of our Catholic royals might all attend the reopening of the Notre Dame. So I wasn't totally anticipating this, and I wasn't really thinking of there sort of being a big opening ceremony. But when I had heard and I had a break, so on December 7th and 8th, I was kind of had a bit of a break between the UK and going to the Netherlands. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll stop in Paris. So I have made an official hotel reservations in Paris. And I'm very much excited about the possibility of seeing what this the whole thing could entail, because I absolutely love the idea of being there for the reopening of the Notre Dame. I absolutely have been in the Notre Dame. It has been many years. I was like devastated when it caught fire, because I'm like, oh my gosh, all the history. Thankfully, there was damage, but not extensive level of damage in terms of like the whole thing burning down or something like that. Obviously, all the wood on the top went because it was all very old. And what's really sad is that there's not trees tall enough in France anymore to replace the same wood that they had previously. So very, very exciting to see this reopening and the possibility of foreign royals in attendance. I didn't really think about that, but I'm very excited about the possibility, especially because I was planning on being there. I am a bit though bummed, because it doesn't seem like, even though this is going to be the official reopening, it doesn't seem like, as far as I can tell, that there will actually be tickets to go in on the 7th or the 8th. It definitely doesn't seem like the 7th and maybe the 8th. I was maybe a little bit confused on that. So I will wait and see. I've heard that tickets inside go on sale on the 1st, but I'm not sure if that's actually correct or not. But I will be watching this very closely, because I would like to go back in. It's been many years now, and I would like to go back in and see what is in the cathedral yet again. But we shall have to see if that is what is available. But a very exciting thing nonetheless. And I'm really hoping that there are a lot of royals in attendance. That would be a very cool way to see a big, unique crowd in a really historic situation. So hopefully that'll come together, but we shall see. We shall see for sure. And just to go, because I have sort of all my tabs pulled up here, and I want to share this real quick. This is just a bit of fun, almost more fashion news, I got to say. But we do have a picture of Tatiana Santo Domingo, actually almost full length in her wedding gown. So Tatiana was married in Gestalt in Switzerland. She actually had she had a civil ceremony in Monaco at the royal palace. She married the firstborn son of Princess Caroline of Monaco. So they got married at the royal palace, and then they had a religious ceremony in Gestalt. And we never got actually a full view of Tatiana without the cape she had on. And I always love the images of her. If you actually go to I think it might even be on Royal News Network, like one of my first fashion videos was actually on wedding looks. And I think I picked her as sort of I don't know, but I like the aesthetic, because she had sort of this furred cape that went over her head, and you could see the tiara and everything. But we actually have this sort of first look at her without the cape on, and you can see the fringed tiara looks fantastic on her. I sort of loved the lace up here, the tiered effect. The dress is from Valentino. Her family has a lot of money, so it's not a surprise that she had this beautiful look. The tiara is a loan from her mother-in-law, Princess Caroline. It's a gorgeous piece. I believe she is holding her son right there, Alexander. And it's like a stunning dress, and very much what you wouldn't think of Tatiana, because she has this very boho style. And then she shows up to her wedding in this very, I would say, classically elegant look. And it was just something where I'm like, dang, I just was not expecting that. So we do have this full-blown look. This was actually posted by Eugenia Garavani. And so she posted this first sort of full look at the dress. And I got to say thank you, Eugenia, because I had been waiting for this look for a long time. So I love this. If you look up Tatiana Santo Domingo wedding, Santo Domingo is 2 words. She is actually one of the heirs of a huge Colombian empire. And so she is worth over $1 billion actually. And she just had this sort of magical fairy tale look. And I'm so excited we got a full view of her gown now. So that just makes me a little bit happy. So just had to share that, because I thought that was some really cool royal news. And we have some other really cool royal news as well coming out of Denmark this time. And so this is with Queen Mary of Denmark. Hopefully the website shows back up here in a second. And she unveiled a statue for one of the former queens of Denmark who made sort of a really big impact. I think it was Queen Louise. And she was known as Countess Danner. And she really helped with the country and everything. And what Mary did, which was really cool, is actually that for the first time in about 100 years, is that she wore a brooch belonging to Countess Danner. And this one actually is housed within Rosenborg Palace. So you can actually go in there and see a lot of the crown jewels of Denmark. So that is that particular brooch there. And so Mary wore that brooch for the first time in many, many years out for the unveiling of this particular statue. And I got to say, I love sort of that little nod to the past there that she did. I love that she took it out of storage, you could say, and say, even though this is something where people can see it, I'm so glad that she ended up wearing it for sure. And so I was going to see, I think maybe we got the picture. There's a better picture of the brooch. You can kind of see its age there. And so it's hangs out at the Rosenborg Castle. So Countess Danner died in 1874, and it has never been seemingly worn by a member of the royal family since. So let's go ahead and see if we can get some more photos of the actual. And so that's actually the countess's jewelry set here. It's kind of interesting because you can tell it has this really old effect, even though it's not that old. It's from the 1800s, but at least that was when she lived. This whole set might actually be older because it has a very, very old look to me in terms of the jewelry, and perhaps not super impressive in some ways. So it is set with red gold, citrines, amethyst, pearls, and diamonds. So I was hoping, you have to go back. I was hoping to see an actual picture of the statue. Maybe we'll see it over here. Maybe not. Okay. So everybody's a little funny how they do their website stuff sometimes. So I just thought that was really cool to actually see that from Queen Mary. I love it when people pull out things from the vaults. I think that's just absolutely incredible and amazing. And I'm hoping to get through maybe these commercials and maybe we can get a little bit better view of Queen Mary at this particular events, because apparently she did have to deal with the wind. This is from Bill Bloddet, one of the websites. There she is arriving. I got to say, I love the look as well. And here she is unveiling this statue. And there we go. I think it's kind of interesting that there's no official facial design here, but it looks like there's a lot of excitement for this particular statue. It is pretty amazing. And there she is getting her speech within the wind, which I think is kind of funny. That's always a bit challenging. Royal ladies and wind, that is just always puts a little bit of a you could say a challenge in what you are doing. So exciting to see Queen Mary out and doing things. I have been really hoping to make it out to Denmark this year. Don't know if that'll happen. Maybe next year, fingers crossed, guys, that might happen. But we do have some new portraits of the king and queen. So King Frederick and Queen Mary. And as many pointed out, which I thought was kind of interesting, is that they make a big deal about her wearing the F for Frederick as a necklace, because last year there were some rumors that perhaps His Majesty had an indiscretion with a female friend. So you could say that this is Mary sort of saying, me and Frederick, we're going for the distance. And I imagine that is the case. I don't think, some people have speculated that was the reason Queen Marguerite stepped down as queen. I don't think that's the case. So she is wearing that. And so we have them together in the pictures, and then we have individual ones as well. So I thought these were something definitely to point out and share with everyone. And on our way back to Norway, we have some, you could say, fascinating news, or just kind of it figures type of news. And this is from Princess Martha Louise and her shaman husband, Derek Verrett, who it was very controversial as well. You could say that Derek and Martha Louise should be very, very thankful to Marius, because he definitely took the attention off them these last couple of months, because there have been a lot of accusations against him and a lot of stories about him being inappropriate with clients and everything. He is a shaman, and they had a big wedding, and apparently they have stuck people with the wedding bill. They went to Granger, and it was up in the fjords. And so they have not settled their bill, which is about 1 million kroner. Don't know quite how much that is, but there are a lot of people who are going to formal collection claims or are pending a second, looks like, billing. And Martha Louise and Durek fled Norway, mostly in response to the allegations against Durek, but it also helps them keep their bills. So hopefully they will pay up and sort of square all the bills that are against them there after their wedding, which was very, I felt like, ostentatious for it being her second wedding and her in her 50s. So that was something that it was just a little odd to see. And then we have an interesting case out of Greece. And I found this something, oh, all of a sudden my computer doesn't like it, but we got another link here. And this is from the Greek royal family. So they do have an official website, even though they don't have any sort of official role. But they have shared that they, as a family, only through this official website is it like sort of officially representative of the Greek monarchy. Now, I know obviously the monarchy is defunct, but only through this website and its private office should anything you could say be taken, quote unquote, seriously, if that makes sense. So they do share of the other official Instagram accounts of members of the family, but they specify that these are personal ones. So they are official accounts in terms of they are officially owned by members of the royal family, but they are not accounts that are representative overall of the Greek monarchy. So this is sort of an interesting conundrum I think that so many are having, is that there's just such a plethora of false accounts out there. Like they make even a great point to go, no member of the royal family holds a Facebook account. So if people are seeing anything on Facebook claiming to be members of the royal family, no, that's not true. These are the only official ones. And so that they have to go through all these steps, I think, shows how difficult it is sometimes in this modern age to really control what information is getting out there. And you have to be really careful about making sure you maintain who is representing for you, who has an official channel and those sorts of things, because there are so many places and pieces where people can get information, and some of it is good and some of it is bad. And so the Greeks are, even though they don't have a monarchy, are feeling the pressure to go, okay, these are the official accounts we hold, but official news from the family only comes from here. So I thought that was a newer, again, reflection on the complications that exist within sort of a modern royal sphere. So moving back over to Spain, the Spanish monarchy, with specifically King Juan Carlos. So it has been suggested by some retired judges that he should be tried on tax fraud charges. So this stems from his former majesty, although he is technically still his majesty, getting a lot of funds in some cases. I think in one case, a loan of like $50 million from the Saudi Arabian monarchy. And he was able to repay it, but he never officially disclosed that he got that money. And there's a lot of questions of where his money comes from. Like there's a lot of sort of nefarious wheeling and dealing that people have suggested over the years. And so it says retired Supreme Court judges have lodged a criminal complaint for 5 alleged offenses of tax fraud to the Supreme Court, claiming Spain's disgraced and exiled former king, Juan Carlos, should stand trial for the alleged crimes. And this would not be even the first time a member of the Spanish monarchy has stood trial over tax crimes. In fact, his daughter, Princess Cristina, was also dragged in front of a court to answer some similar questions regarding her husband's own business. Her husband did end up being convicted for similar charges and did spend time in prison. So it says, along with several retired prosecutors and a left-wing cultural figures, the former judges claim Juan Carlos, 86, was wrongly let off tax fraud charges and demand that he be summoned from his current home in Abu Dhabi to stand trial. They also have called for a dozen people who paid his expenses or managed his fortune abroad to be questioned. So he went into exile in 2020 amid corruption investigations that have since been shelved. He abdicated in 2014 and has paid the country's tax authorities more than 5 million euros to settle the scandal. So Juan Carlos, definitely, this is with his daughter, Infanta Elena, continues to be sort of, you could argue, a thorn in the side of King Felipe. Because as King Felipe tries to turn the page, it seems like always situations with his father come up. And his father is a much, in some ways, revered figure in Spain, because he is one of the people who turned Spain back towards democracy after the autocracy, you could say, or dictatorship of Francisco Franco. So there's a lot of love for Juan Carlos, but he has been involved in some very nefarious dealings. But there is, you could say as well, some obvious bias here, because these are left-wing figures. Most generally, not all the times, those who support monarchies within a country tend to lean right. And so you could say this is somewhat of a political investigation, but there's a lot of money that has run through Juan Carlos over the years that people don't know quite where he got it. And he announced recently that for his daughters, he was planning to establish a foundation so that they could always have some money coming in. I mean, the big question to me is that these women are at least close to 60, if not in their 60s. By this point, they should be able to fund themselves. But I understand him as a father wanting to help support them. But it's just a dangerous situation here, and one that obviously King Felipe does not need. King Felipe and I think Queen Letizia, again, have done themselves a great service by participating and supporting the people of Valencia and the way they did a couple weeks ago. But Juan Carlos is an ever-present thorn in the side. And what's interesting is that you have these left-wing people who sort of want to go after him, but you also have people on the right who are very, very protective of him and hate Letizia. So you have this sort of just combination and caustic situation between these various factions. And it's now something that's sort of not great for the future, but just something to review and see about for sure. So we will go ahead and end on the king's coronation costs. So how much did it cost to put on this glorious show here? So it cost about 72 million pounds. It was less than half the cost of Queen Elizabeth II's funeral, the government has revealed. So the Department for Culture, Media, and Sport paid 50.3 million, with a further 21.7 million from the Home Office to cover policing. And I will say, I definitely, at the coronation itself, I definitely felt the policing effort, because the people who were blocking my shots of the procession were police officers, especially, well, this wasn't a police officer, but there was one particularly tall ambulance gentleman who I swear was 6'7", and his friend who had an umbrella, and they were like at the front of the thing because there was an open area, and they're at the front of the thing and they're like blocking my view. And I'm like, hey, I've been standing here for hours. Like, put your umbrella down. I can't see. So I got a little American. I hate to say it, but I'd been there for 6 hours and I really wanted to see the procession coming back, and I couldn't see it because of the really tall guy in the big umbrella. I'm like, just think of us as the audience who've been standing here for so long. I was like, at least you get the best view, because the ironic thing is they got the most unobstructed view because they were in the very front. I'm like, that is just no fair. So I think that was definitely money well spent. The only thing I particularly would have loved to see that we did not see at the coronation were the other ladies in tiaras. I still don't know why that particular decision was made, because Catherine had to spend money to make the headpiece that she wore that looks just like a tiara when she could have just worn a tiara, in my personal opinion. And I did think it was interesting that some people were complaining. I saw on social media that people were like really frustrated that some people, that Catherine wasn't going to the state banquet. And it's like, oh, Catherine does enough. I'm like, yeah, but we all still like tiaras. Like, I watch Royals in part because I like watching the tiaras. I like seeing the tiaras. So without the tiaras, it was a little disappointing. And I will say as well, if you were in the crowd that morning, and Carol asked, 72 million pounds cost for the coronation, yet how much money was brought in for tourism? A lot. There were 1 million people down there. It was packed. It was absolutely packed. I even paid a little bit more to get a better hotel room and stuff, because I wanted to make sure I had the best opportunities possible. I had to actually stay within walking distance. And so that was an additional challenge. But yeah, a lot of tourism dollars came in. And the only other thing I wish they had added for the coronation is that one of the things that was a big challenge is when it came to be about, I want to say about 8 or 9 o'clock, we had no more access to internet. So I imagine it was something where they deliberately cut off access to internet for the crowd and stuff. And I understand from a security perspective why they did that. But they were broadcasting the ceremony from loudspeakers on the mile. The problem is that you couldn't always hear it and you had no clue what was happening. Like, it's not like a yearly event, so you have a lot of context to what's happening. We had zero context to what's happening. And I sort of wish what they had actually done, which I think might have been helpful to the crowd, is that they could have put screens down the mile and actually put on the screens, because I think they did this for the concert, put on the screens the coronation so we could actually watch it. Because my challenge was, I was there at the official event, but I had no clue what anybody was wearing or what anybody looked like or anything. No idea until I got down to the balcony. And you want to bet you believe I ran down that mile, because I was fairly far back, because they actually let the back half of the crowd in first before the front half. So I ran all the way down to make sure I got my balcony shot, which I definitely did. It was very cool. That was the highlight of the day. The rest of the day I could have done without. And because it was a long, tiring day and security was a mess and I couldn't get back to my hotel, which was like really close, but I had to walk like, I felt like halfway around town to finally get back. That's obviously anecdotal, but it was a really interesting situation for sure. But very exciting. I think money well spent. And because not only that, you had the initial influx of people for the coronation, but you also had the influx of people going to Buckingham Palace to see the exhibition, to see the actual coronation outfits of Charles and Camilla. I wish they had included Catherine and Sophie and stuff too, but for the future time, I would love it if they had displayed Catherine's dress, especially because you didn't get a great look at it in some ways. So yeah, there are some things that will change, but I feel like overall the coronation budget was very, very well spent. So guys, this is sort of the conclusion of today's Crown Report. I hope you guys really, really enjoyed it. So we will get to some questions. If you guys have any questions about any of the official events that we had, feel free to put it here in the comments. And so we have bathing cats on a cloudy day, says Juan Carlos is a character with shadows and moments of brilliance, but he did it so badly in the last years. Yeah, he had his moments of brilliance and absolute catastrophe. Alice Ranson said the coronation was amazing, loved it, even though it rained. Yes, the rain was challenging. The rain was challenging. CNK Cribs said, I was so disappointed with no tiaras at the coronation. Other ladies get to wear them, just not the royals. So very sorry we didn't get to see any. Me too. Me too, for sure. Aisha says, the problem with Juan Carlos is that the people of Spain see him as democracy's savior. That is true. And that is part of the problem. So bathing cats on a cloudy day. Also, King Juan Carlos was leaving all his money to his two daughters in Abu Dhabi, so they won't have to pay Spanish taxes, approximately 2,000 millions, which would be 2 billion. So yeah, again, there's weird how it's just sort of strange. Like, he has all this money, but Felipe doesn't have a lot of money. It's kind of sad. Aisha says, I saw Queen Letizia when she came to Puerto Rico a few years ago. I was pretty close to her. I'm 5'6", and the tallest she can be is 5'4". Very interesting, because I've heard different things, that she's actually taller than you might think, but that wouldn't necessarily surprise me either. Nika says, is there even a monarchy without a scandal? Not really. Not really. But you have to think too, is that monarchies are sort of even different than politicians, in that monarchies are like, the family aspect of it is a huge factor within the monarchies. Like, the family drama is you cannot separate it from a monarchy, because a monarchy is a family. Ergo, there will be family drama. Like there is in every family. Every family has family drama. So it's really fascinating to see. And that's what makes, I think, royalty so compelling in some ways, is because you do have this family dynamic that's messy and everything. So let's see. So SEJ says, interesting, Notre Dame can bring many religions together if it's a bunch of rich dudes, but humanity can't do it regularly. Well, it's sort of a complicated thing. Obviously, in some ways, there'll be tensions between the various religions, but I think if they did come, I think that would be pretty amazing. There is a close connection between France and Morocco historically. So it would not be a necessarily huge surprise to see the king there, or maybe even the crown prince, because he's getting older as well. So SEJ says, I'm on delay on the Catherine stuff. Are you going to the Christmas Carol thing, Brittany? How does one get to go and know you'll get in? So I will not get in. It's invitation only, but my plan is to get there very early, stand outside in the cold, and watch them arrive. Because most likely I would not be able to get press credentials for that. The Brits are just very particular about that. It's very hard. Even when I went to the Commonwealth Day, you would be surprised how many photographers are actually outside. They can't even get press credentials for it. So me getting press credentials, totally not going to happen. So, I mean, I could still try. But the Brits are very, very particular about that. That's why I try to get as much as I can more experience within the other monarchies, because they allow more press credential access for more independent outlets like mine, and so I can cut my teeth and everything, which I enjoy. Alice says, it's a lovely brooch. I hope Queen Camilla and Catherine start to wear brooches more. Me too. Carol says, I love incorporating history with contemporary fashion. Yes. And Carol also says, Mary consistently looks amazing. Yes, she does. Margarita says, Garavani is the second name of Valentino. I think she's a niece. Yeah, and someone else said she may be found in Masani or something. So, or is part of Masani as well. So she's a friend in some form with Tatiana. So she shared that amazing picture. Sleepy Fox says, I love the new photos and appreciate leaving the sash off. Every time I watch your royal fashion episodes, I'm thinking the same. The dresses are beautiful, but those darn sashes mess it up. I personally love the sashes. I think it gives it that extra little oomph that Hollywood fashion doesn't have. So Gretchen the First says, I love learning about other royals, but will always welcome good stories about the Wales as a family. Yes. Alice says, King Charles loves architecture, and so would love the building, I'm sure. Yeah, I think that I would love Charles to go to the Notre Dame. I think that's amazing. Just Me says, loving this episode. Very, very informative, paired with great mix of topics. I wish you could do more of these and cut half the Harry and Meghan negativity. So we do try to do a mix. I love these episodes. I think these episodes are so fun and so great to expose people to the other royals as well. SEJ says, I always wondered how one actually reaches those art dreams like an overpaid photographer. Yeah, I think it's kind of funny because I'm like, I'm not really all that impressed, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure the composition took hours to get it just right, but I'm like, I feel like I've seen better pictures at the spur of the moment sometimes than something that is highly choreographed. So Karen says, Her Majesty the Queen, Dominic Dunn, Power, Privilege, and Justice. Remember that show. So they were talking about earlier, which I did see, a Dateline about the Marius situation, Keith Morrison narrating it. Oh, that would be awesome. That would actually be really good. I love listening to Keith Morrison. He has a fantastic voice. Marjorie says, would love to see the Princess of Wales in the Emerald Kokoshnik tiara. It's so beautiful. Me too. Bathing Cats on a Cloudy Day said, oh, the Notre Dame open again? Thanks. Yes. For the really good news. Yes, the Notre Dame de Paris is reopening. 7th and 8th are the official dates. I don't know if you can actually get in. That is sort of the question, because I thought you could, and now I'm not so sure. But I shall try my darndest because I want to get in. Cindy says, hopefully lots of sparkles in December. That is what I'm hoping for. Louis says, have you heard the rumor that if the Dutch RF will host a birthday blast for Amalia for her 21st birthday, since they cannot hold one for her 18th? It sort of depends. They sort of got in trouble a bit for having, I think, a party for her, like a private one in 2020, I believe it was, or 2021. So I don't know if they will do another, if they could do it or not. So, Per Majesty the Queen, the case of Marius is like a Dateline episode. I can hear Keith now. Money, power, privilege, and the troubled son of a crown princess accused of filming assaults on 3 female victims. Is mom helping cover it up? Oh, I mean, it writes itself. I would hopefully at some point, I mean, I would love to write a book about honor royals and stuff. And it's always hard because you want to, highlight the good royals do. I realize I'm leaving up our last story here. But at the same time, the personal drama is just part of it too. And I think the situation in Norway is definitely worth exploration, because it's all about power and privilege and how maybe he used power and privilege to get away with things. And that's something that the monarchy has to answer for. It's like not something you can ignore. I feel like they're trying to sort of ignore it, but they can't really ignore it at the same time. So, bathing with cats is Queen Letizia is petite in a sense that she's naturally sleek and thin. Yes. Rebecca says Queen Elizabeth II had to take her crown off as well and was ticked because her hair was already done. Yeah, I can see Her Majesty going, oh, he's making me take, I just got my hair done. I think it looks perfect. Addie Leo says we need a tiara moment. Yes, we do. I like tiara moments. Just Sayan says, I don't think the Brits need to take lessons from other royal families apart from their respective countries. No one knows who these other royals are. Everyone knows who the BRF are. I would say actually that is not the case at all, because you can't take the exact situation and compare them. That is 100% true. However, you need to, I think the other royal families need to pay attention to how a member of the family, who's not even a real member of the family in some ways, and I shouldn't say real because that's not right, but not a working member of the family. He's not an actual blood royal. He is not those things, yet his actions have a severe impact on the trust in the monarchy, undermining the institution. That is what's critical, because I have been arguing in regards to Harry and Meghan that they are doing the same. Even though the rest of the royals are still popular and everything, Harry and Meghan's actions are sort of undermining some of the trust and faith in the monarchy. I see it more as constant little cuts that they're doing. And sometimes they're aware of it, sometimes they're not. But those type of things do have an impact. You can't let Harry and Meghan turn their version of royalty into a sideshow and not think that at some point it might impact the main family as well. That's why you have to take these things seriously. Because when I look at the case of Marius, I think it was the thing of his parents were covering his butt a lot. And they were thinking they had it under control until all of a sudden it blew up in their face. And now they're answering questions and they don't quite know what to do. And it's all chaos. And they're looking at the future of the monarchy going, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? That's the critical situation that you can't avoid, that has to be recognized, is that sometimes you think you can keep something contained and something will work, and then all of a sudden it doesn't. And I think that's the same case with Harry and Meghan. The British royal family, they just kind of ignore them and hope they go away, and they ignore them and they go about their business, which I think 99% of the time does work. But you have to either be aware, or you have to be actually working on that one case where all of a sudden that is not what is going to work anymore. Because you do have somebody with titles going around, and I will say, especially for the American audience, undermining what it means to be royalty. They just are. Margarita says, there are many speculations about the visit here in Italy of some British royal next spring, Wales's, or even the king. Do you know anything about it? It would be a great occasion for you to come too. So actually the rumor was initially that actually was the Spanish monarchy doing a state visit in Italy. Have not heard confirmation if that's happening or not. And I would say we should have heard about it at some point by this time. But what's sort of interesting is that in the case of Belgium and Oman, we just heard about it last week, and it's happening next week. So there could be a case where it's just a couple of weeks before, and all of a sudden they're like, yep, we're going. So we could hear maybe later this week or even next week that they are going. So that would be very interesting. When it comes to Catherine and William, initially it's actually announced that they were going to Italy actually earlier this year, in the spring, and obviously they had to cancel that. Alice says, I understand she's still recovering and those banquets must be very tiring. I think sometimes too, it is sort of, she might still have some dietary issues that she's having to deal with, given that she had abdominal surgery. So that might be part of it too. Marjorie says, can we take bets on how many press releases with photos of Markles will reach? Perhaps. Marblehead says, Brittany, you pronounce mile like U.S. mall, not mile, I think, as you heard to say. Okay, so it's kind of weird because I can't remember if it's mile or mall, but it kind of sounds like mall. And so it's mile, but it's mall. So I try to be right, and I don't get it. Everybody has a complaint about something. So Karen says it's said that she's not that petite. She just looks very small compared to Philippe because he's so tall. Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting comparison between Philippe and Letizia, because he is 6'5". So he is a very, very tall man. And so anybody comparison to him would look super short. And she's tiny already. And he's just, not, I would say, like a fat guy, but he's I think a pretty well-built guy. I think he keeps in shape. And so, yeah, Just Me says, yeah, let's speak more about the whales as their stories are so positive and interesting, perfect for the season and hard times many people are going through. We need more positive vibes. Carol says, oh, yes, I forgot to make this announcement. Carol said they will have state visits on winter while Buckingham Palace is being renovated. Yes, so they will move all state visits until 2027 to Windsor Castle. So this will be actually the last sort of big state visit in the UK. Or sorry, not in the UK, at Buckingham Palace for a while. So I think it is. I was going to, again, go to Belgium, but because this is sort of like a historic moment, it feels better to actually be in the UK for it. CNK Crib says, hopefully the state visit will bring out tiaras. Even if Catherine's not there, Queen Camilla and Sophie bust out the tiaras. Yes, and new tiaras. Like I would love to see Sophie wear the Queen Mary's bandeau that Meghan wore for her wedding, just saying. Lizzie B says, I love Shiksa Moses fashion. She always looks amazing. She does. She does. Isabella says, why is the British RF so close with all the Middle Eastern royals? I would say they're not super close, but when it comes to the state visits, those are something dictated usually by the state. So Charles maybe has some say, but really it's the government that wants the meeting. Bathing Cats on a Cloudy Day says, and Queen Letizia is quite petite. A lot of times Tiara look too much with her small frame. They do. Maxima can wear the big stuff and wear it well. Letizia, I think, sort of struggles. Carol says, yay, want her and Tiara hopefully next year. Yes. So let's keep it going here and see if we got some interesting comments for sure. Isabella says, I'm not a fan of her work, it's just my opinion. $137,000. Wow, so overpriced and overrated. I would actually argue yes. I think Annie Leibovitz is a bit, I think she works for some things, but I just don't think she particularly worked here. Because I feel like, okay, hold on, guys. We had to have somebody help with the last half, apparently, because she wants to. Yes, there you go. She needs to help. And we do have, obviously, the sad loss of Beth for Her Majesty Queen Camilla, but they will be getting new dogs sometime soon. Yeah. So we have Denise saying, as for Marius, his mother is part of the problem. I'm sure she's covered for him, just like King Charles is covered for Harry. Looks where it's got them. Holding someone accountable for their actions is paramount. I agree. Or some Brick says, we have a competitive tendering for public services, so why not the monarchy? Lady Aviator says, unfortunately, rehab is essentially useless. I know several in my life who has gone to rehab for alcoholism and PTSD, and none of them came out any better. They eventually relapsed and regressed. Yes, because I will say when it comes to something like rehab, the person who's going really has to make the decision to change. If he doesn't make the decision to change himself, rehab's really sort of pointless. Really sort of pointless. So, yeah. Carol says that is disgusting in regards to Marius. Lizzie says this is bad. Noir says he is spoiled. Yes, I think those things are all true. So Carol says if prison can help rehabilitate, the other side of prison could harden him. That is true. That is true. Although I will say Norwegian prisons are apparently 3-star hotels is what people joke about them. SCJ says, who from the so-called underworld, older people, career criminals, or just some young immature Jews trying to be tough? The usage of underworld in the article sounds so movie-like. You could attribute some of that to translation issues because some things just don't translate exactly right or give sort of the same perception, you could argue. But when it comes to underworld, like very much it seems like drug dealers are sort of his crowd. So it's been very clear that he's been involved in some of those type of people. I mean, they brought him into a police station to talk to him about his criminal friends. So these are not just average punks trying to be tough. These are, I would argue, actual criminals. Carol says, again, Brittany has repeatedly continually this lack of parenting situation has compounded the situation. Hopefully he will get help. Yeah, I think, goodness, hopefully, I hope he gets help, but he has to want the help. And so far from everything we've seen, he just doesn't want the help. And what I see as well as a kid who doesn't even seem to take anything of this seriously. Noir says, I've not been able to catch a Crown Report live in a while. He needs to learn a lesson from his actions. It continues to look bad for Metamara. It does, and Hakan as well. Gretchen the First says, he comes across as troubled and entitled. The whole seems like one of those truth is stranger than fiction series. I would 100% believe that. I agree with that because I I was not anticipating this would get this bad. I thought, oh, maybe it's a one-time thing. No, this just gets worse every single week. Something else comes out. We cover him every single week because he is like a serious case every single week. So, all right. Angela says he learned his bad behavior from somewhere. Yeah, I mean, I hate to agree with that, but it is true. And it could be his dad and mom in combination of the two. His dad was involved in criminal elements as well. So he might have learned some of that from his dad. And then his mom enabled him by not really holding him accountable for his actions. So Alice says this is so serious and sad. That is one troubled young man. It definitely is. It definitely is. Anne says, I've heard the accusations against Marius. If they are true, he must be brought to justice. However, I also believe a person who is accusing him should be looked at closely. I would agree with that. Of course, innocent until proven guilty. But I would say sort of the thing is that you could have like a one-time accusation, and it could obviously be somebody who is just trying to undermine you. That does happen quite a bit to men, unfortunately. But when you have an obvious like continual series of violations and things, it's obviously it's a pattern of behavior that's difficult to ignore. This is obviously a pattern of behavior for him. So Blue Ella says, as for C getting freebies, there's no evidence for that. Her parents are fairly rich before the marriage, and her siblings lived in an apartment. Plus, she still buys similar clothes from the same brands. This is obviously regarding Catherine. I think there was somebody being a little interesting in the comments. But yeah, I mean, there was actually reports. I was actually doing previous research for a video I don't think I ended up doing. And I came across something that did say that Catherine got freebies from Issa. I don't think that's particularly bad a thing, but definitely once she became a royal and stuff, that she did not do those things. I think what's so important to remember about the differences between Catherine and Meghan sometimes is that Catherine, once she officially married in, she changed what she was doing. And she respected the institution. Meghan came in wanting all the things she wanted before and disrespected the institution entirely. So Louise says, good evening, Brittany. Have I ever said how much I love the Crown Report? I don't remember, but thank you. Thank you. Lizzie B says, this whole situation with Marius in Norway is disheartening. Hopefully he will learn something from this and apologize to everyone involved. Yes. Okay, I gotta say, guys, Ms. Pippa looking at me so intently is very cute because she's like, she has the most attention right now. Yes, she does. Yes, she does. Oh, sweet girl. Okay, let's get over here. So Cece says, this is a great comprehensive royal report. I'm looking forward to your reporting from Europe. Safe travels. Why, thank you. I'm very excited too. I love this program, guys. It's one of the things I sort of love that I get to do, because otherwise I just don't think I would have the time to do this individual videos because of the time that it takes to edit and everything. So this is the best way to get out so many stories, and I love doing it. Karen says, do you think Queen Letizia enjoys popularity in Spain? She is somewhat still a controversial figure, but I think at the same time, she sees royalty as a job. And I think that's a good way to see it sometimes. Yes, it's a privilege. Yes, it's part of a family and everything, but she does see it as a job. And I think that's important. Carol says, monarchy is a family drama, yet you have to have people who comport themselves differently from each other. Yep. Oh, Lizzie B says, don't forget to like this royal live stream and leave a comment down below with your thoughts. See you next one. Why, thank you, Lizzie. All right, Kristen says, have to head back to work. See everyone Saturday. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Yes, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Yeah, somebody is going to get some turkey, guys. We are going to have a little bit of a turkey for Miss Pippa. So Carrie says, I was so surprised over the colorful robes Catherine and Sophie wore and no tiaras. Yeah, it was kind of, it was a little odd. P Pacific says, Keith Morrison Dateline is Canadian and stepfather to the late Matthew Perry. Yes, and he has this is a great deep like radio voice. I love listening to him. He has a fantastic voice. He does. Margarita says, I've just discovered the Savoyas are arguing among themselves with two who declare to be head of house and therefore king. How lucky we are to have get rid of such a buffoons. So this is in return to the House of Savoy over there in Italia. So there are a couple of places where there are pretenders or actors to the throne. So Alice says, I think it's possible the reason there were no tiaras for the coronation is because the security of the crown jewels need their own security. Maybe they were worried about bringing out more. I mean, I would say probably not. I don't think that was really the issue. I think they wanted it to seem not so ostentatious. I think that was the goal. And I mean, I think they succeeded there, but sometimes you need a little bit of the royal drama. PSAL Tisk says the royals do have privilege. Prince pervert has trouble to go away when the queen paid off the young girl. So this is in regards to Andrew. They do have privilege. I think the Andrew accusations are probably somewhat true, but also somewhat probably not the whole truth either. So I think that situation has always been a little bit complicated. And it's hard too because it's such an old accusation. The Marius stuff is very fresh. He took videos. So yeah. Chris Overby says most people in Europe are familiar with the different royal families. They are. So yeah, Carol says royal adjuncts are impacting the royal family. It's true. I just don't think you can totally ignore them. Becky says, I thought the RF had no tiara at the coronation was the case. Meghan did come and would want to wear one. No, they would not make decisions about the coronation based on Meghan Markle. They just wouldn't. Cece says, this is a great comprehensive royal report. I'm looking forward to your reporting from Europe. Safe travels. So I thank you. And I think too, when it comes to back to the coronation question, they could always make it a simple rule of only working royals could wear tiaras. That would automatically eliminate Meghan. That would be super easy to do. So Hannah says, 100% agree it's death by 1,000 cuts until Meghan lets Harry go and eventually he rescinds his novel as mostly false. Yeah, I think it's challenging. Chris says, I read that King Charles wanted a less elaborate coronation with more common citizens attending. Yes. And he succeeded there. I think it was awesome that they had, a lot of average attendees there as well, but I like the tiaras. Carol says, what I read, William did not want an investor ceremony. Yes. Michelle B says, how cute is Pippa? She is very cute. She is very cute. So Sandra says, good evening. I can tell Pippa knows she should not be licking your face and she's trying so hard to restrain herself, but it's not easy. No, it's not. She really wants to lick my face. She always wants to lick my face. Yeah. So Karen says, it should be said that the Norwegian prisons can be compared to luxurious hotel rooms or research it. Yes, I have heard that. Like the guy who murdered 70 people on that island, he's even eligible for parole. And I remember hearing he got a pretty luxe accommodations in Norway. In the United States, if you're convicted of something like that, you go to Supermax, which is like you only get like an hour of outside time a day or something, like highly, highly secure. So we got something called Supermax over here in the United States. And it's interesting because you could say prison is both a good and bad thing, but I think it always depends on the person. For some people, they go to prison. They're like, I never want to be here again. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to change everything I'm doing and go a different way. And then other people, they just get more involved in the criminal element. So there's kind of two sides to the same coin. So it all goes back to something called personal accountability and responsibility. Like if she can stop herself from trying to lick my face, like that is some personal accountability from the puppy angle. She has decided not to lick my face, but she wants to lick my face because she thinks it's good. Marjorie says, hearing about all the European royals is very interesting. In the UK, we do not get much info on them or their official visits. Yeah, that's why I kind of like focusing on some of the more peripheral royals, because there's so much coverage already on the British. Not that I don't want to cover the British. We do cover the British quite a bit here on this channel, but I'm like, there's so many other royals. And if we focused on the Brits, it could take the whole time. And I'm like, I want to look at the other royals because I find out interesting things that I didn't even know, which is so cool. Aisha says, Marius is a broken guy. Hakan met Amaret had it complicated while raising Marius because he didn't have any titles and his younger siblings are more relevant for the monarchy than him. Yeah, I don't envy the complications here because you have to make sure every child feels valued as an individual human being, but at the same time you have some children who are more important than others, and that is a complicated dynamic, and you have to feel for Marius because he was part of a family and then not part of a family at the same time, so it's complicated. Yeah, Aisha says as well, yeah, Marius could be an asset for the monarchy. Sorry, Miss Pippa is also clicking on the comments. And Hakan and Marit didn't do it well. They didn't. It's very sad. Very sad. Laner says, I'm listening to you. Just cleaning the house up for Thanksgiving. Awesome. P Pacific says, Brittany, you must share some of the cuisine delights during your travels. Go crazy. We love it. Why, thank you. I will enjoy it. And I enjoy sharing hopefully some coverage with you guys and some live coverage from the UK on next week, which is crazy. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. It'll be the 3rd. It'll be wild. And P Pacific says real quick here, Mette-Marit's stepbrother was murdered in the massacre in Norway tragedy you just mentioned. So sad and shocking. Yes, it was very sad and shocking. There are some pictures where she's just absolutely crushed by what has happened. That was a huge shock, I think, to Norway. For sure. So guys, I hope you guys have, if you are American, have a lovely Thanksgiving. If you are anywhere else in the world, I hope you have a lovely rest of the week. And maybe you have some turkey in our honor. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Miss Pippa appreciates it as well. So guys, have a great week and we shall see you guys really, really soon. Bye. Do you want to say bye, Miss Pippa? Bye.